Testing, 1, 2, 3. All right. There you go. Yeah. All right, let's try to find a seat, and we'll begin with a word of prayer. Let us pray. Loving and gracious God, we are grateful for the ways in which we have been blessed and enriched by the beautiful building that we are able to worship in week in and week out. We're grateful too for the many generations of people over many, many years who have worked tirelessly to maintain this building and to pass it on to future generations. Lord, as we think about our future ministry and how these beautiful buildings might be used in the 21st century, open our hearts and minds to see where you are leading and help us to sense the movement of your Spirit. And we ask these things in your holy name. Amen. So I know Paul is the main attraction here, but I'm just going to try to frame the larger discussion in light of the mission and ministry of our congregation. You all know we have a big HVAC thing going on, heating and cooling. Several people pointed out to me, do we not have any heat in this building? The answer is no, we do not have any heat in this building, because they're putting in a new air changer or something underneath the sanctuary and won't be working until November 1st. Okay. So what the staff have been dealing with over the past few weeks, we had just 10 days ago, it was 90 plus, and so the whole building was just sweltering. And then like 4 days later, it was in the 40s, and we all had our space heaters out. So it's just going like that. But just a couple of more Sundays, it'll be more comfortable. HVAC, this master site plan, it's all about mission and ministry. It's about how can we use this beautiful building, which is our primary tool for ministry, for both taking care of our internal church members and for outreach into the community. How can we make it better work for the challenges facing the church in the 21st century? With groups, I like to share statistics that some of you believe and some of you don't, but these are well researched. A third of the churches in the United States are declining, a third are maintaining their memberships, and a third are growing. The ones that are growing have a plan to grow. They work the plan and they plan the work. And this is part of the plan, okay? It's not the whole thing. It's not going to happen all at once because this is a big campus. But it's designed to be aspirational in putting before the congregation what's possible, what could be. And what I want you to be asking yourself as Paul presents this morning is where do I sense God in this? Paul is a wonderfully patient listener. He has really carefully listened to what you all have been telling him about your hopes and dreams for this beautiful building, how to maintain it, how to improve it, how to better use it to be a better outreach tool. And that patience, I think, has really borne fruit, as you're going to see, because it really reflects what you've been saying. And it also dovetails nicely with what you've been saying in terms of what your hopes and dreams are for the the program ministry of the church. Everything from worship to speaker series to music and arts programming to educational programming to being able to do a better job, for example, of reaching out to the communities, the neighborhoods around the church. And the other thing I keep saying at every group is that there's been a generational turnover in the neighborhoods around the church, and I'm talking about all around the church. One of the striking things about our neighbors is how young they are. And so what I hear from all people, well, we need more young people. My answer, well, they live right next door, and we have to have a plan to engage with them, and that's part of this as well. There are also a couple of other components to this that won't be covered but will be soon. We have separate task forces looking at the Summit parking lot and at the park, but that's also being coordinated with what Paul is presenting today, and there will be more information about that later. One final thing. These are drawings. They're all subject to change. And so, as Paul will point out, we're only about 5% into this. There's a lot of detail and specific things that need to be worked out. So, for example, when we show you a picture of the Kirk parlor, it's the example is how the room could be used. It has furniture in it, but it's okay if you don't like it. Okay? Right? All right, take it away, Paul.
Families have discussions where not everybody agrees with each other, and this is part of the master planning process that we've jointly come together with over the past few months. It's important to walk alongside each other, to hear each other's thoughts and visions and dreams, and they might be a little different than yours, but as we move through a master planning process, the idea is it sets a long-range goal of where we are now and where we want to go. And there are multiple paths to get there. And part of a family is understanding that we all want to get to here, and we agree that's our vision. And as we go on that path to get there, we might take a few twists and turns, but we're focused on that goal. That's what consensus is. We understand where we want to go, and the things that might be the highest priority for me might be the second priority for others. And that's where we are on this. I also want to, the Developing for the Future Committee, how many members are here today? This is a really good committee that you have, and your staff is really good. And those of you that have participated in many of our listening sessions and our previous congregational meetings, thank you for participating. This is a long and a beautiful journey, and I really helpful. It's your journey of which I get to help and my team alongside for a little bit of it. And I also want to say that this is a presentation of all of ours. It's not Miller Dunwoody's, it's not Paul May's. We have a collective team that is very, very talented, and that includes all of you. And so as we walk through this, I'll be pointing, I love this next little thing I just picked up in our office. It's this great little thing. I can point at my laptop and it shows up here. Way in the back, you may not be able to see it, so come on up if you can, and we're here to ask and raise your hand with questions as we go, and bear with me if I say we're going to get to that in just a couple of minutes as we go along. This is not a presentation as much as a discussion. We'll have time for questions at the end or key things as we go through. As Scott mentioned, this is an aerial photo. There is another group looking at the parking lot across Summit, and there's another group looking at the park, and that's part of the master planning process. We're on parallel paths as well as everything we're doing here. Just a highlight and a reminder of where we are. This is a master planning process. Let's thinking of 5 years and 15 years and 25 years in the future. Right now, no final decisions have been made. We have been working along here. We're about 5% of the way in the design process. We're not breaking ground next Tuesday. We are. But what we're trying to do is create some guidance so that decisions that get made can say, how does that fit into this long-range plan we have? So that when something gets decided, it fits into that mold. We don't want to say, oh, if I would have only thought about that, I wouldn't have, I don't know, looked the bathrooms here or something like that. We are also looking at construction costs. It's part of the decision-making process. It's part of the design process. We're developing high-level cost estimates. When we're 5% along the way, we don't know what the door handle is going to look like yet, and things like that. But we have done this enough and our cost estimating firm is very good at it. We're still working on it. It's not yet complete. We are not trying to hide that from you. It's just we're trying to organize it in a way that makes some sense, that can be looked at in phases, in elements of the plans that you'll see here, because it won't all happen at once, and we have to help prioritize, and we have to help see how that works. And again, it's a guide. And I can tell you, working with you and your staff and your community and listening to some of the neighbors as well, we are excited at the possibilities. And we continue to want to say, what do you think? Are we on the right path? When I was up here a couple months ago, I guess back in April, this was the process that we talked about. We looked at your building, your campus. We looked at your needs, and we overlaid them and said, how do they mix? How do they align? And from that, to try to align the two of them together, we came up with a number of options that we shared. And now we're near the end of the master planning process. It's a living and breathing document. So we have gone from April through listening sessions, options, and now we're trying to refine a single direction to move forward. Again, what we heard, and I don't expect you to be able to read all of this, but we shared this at our last congregational meeting and with the task force and with the session and with the trustees. This is your plan. We facilitate and help and add our guidance and some of our experiences in translating some of your thoughts and wishes into physical ideas. And some of the things we heard, easily identifiable entries from Summit and from Portland. A central gathering place where we can grow together as a community, where we can go from here to education, to worship, to music, all sorts of things. A secure and an efficient building where we can have elements of the building be open and the rest of it closed from a security point of view, so that if someone does want to rent out a portion of it, they don't have access to the whole building. They could, but we have doors and things like that keep it away. Creating places for action and spirituality all week long. I love the message today that said faith without action is useless, and action without faith is misguided. We don't have a central focus, something to look to bring us, to guide us through. I also have to say today, coming to worship, elements that are so important for House of Hope, and we understand in our design team. The music was wonderful today. The message was wonderful today. And I have to admit, I love these little kids' art things that are in, because I was writing notes down to it. And those of you that know me, I colored outside the lines a little bit as well. We also talked about outreach. Music is our legacy. Let's build upon it. Music takes all shapes, all numbers and sizes, and where do we practice? And where do we rehearse? And how easily can we move the handbells from where they are into here and back? And how about flexibility in our wonderful sanctuary space that could be used for outside groups, for St. Paul Chamber Orchestra or others in our own as well, a music venue that reaches out into the neighborhood and others. Other partnership options, whether that would be in our sanctuary, in our assembly room, in our education wing, on our grounds, along Summit Avenue, in the back, farmers markets, and things like these are all things we heard. Intergenerational. Others before us built what we have here, and what we are doing now sets the course for our children and our grandchildren, our great-grandchildren. Use of the full campus. We talked about gathering and hospitality, welcoming others coming in, welcoming our own community, welcoming those that are younger and older. Place for community, place for food, a place for water, a place for a hearth, that focal area. We also talked about the education wing. It might be a little underutilized. Let's talk about the cloister walk. Let's talk about a catering or a commercially grade kitchen and assembly spaces in the Great Hall. It's all a preamble to say, before we started drawing things, it was important to know what you have and what you need or desire. And from that that was the catalyst for what you see here. This is a site plan. Imagine us 1,000 square feet, 1,000 feet above in our little drone looking down. Summit Avenue, Avon, Portland. Again, the park area is here. The area across Summit is over here. We looked at what we heard. How do we connect and create a great identifiable entrance from Summit as well as connect it to Portland? What we see here is a site plan. We will show more detail in just a second, but the idea is the entrance just to the gallery would be highlighted as the main prominent entrance from Summit. Other entrances exist, the stairs and the steps coming into the sanctuary and the narthex would be there, beautiful for photographs and things. But sidewalks lead to a main entrance. In the front, how do we activate Summit Avenue to make it more inviting for our neighbors, to let them see what's going on, to have that transparency from the outside in, as well as the transparency within elements of the building. So we've looked at the idea of places of spirituality, places of respite, perhaps a labyrinth, perhaps a place for music outside, places to sit, places to pause, places to be by fountains, places to be in amphitheaters, places to cross safely Portland Avenue and Summit as well, places to define parking also with green space and trees, to preserve the natural environment, to be good stewards of the land and the building that God's given us. We'll see more of this in a second. A little bit closer from Summit Avenue. Curved sidewalks that make each entrance accessible, so that I can come in if I'm mobility impaired or with a stroller or with 6 kids or pushing something. There are no steps at all of these entrances. The sidewalk just slopes up to enter. Likewise, we'll see that on the Portland Avenue side. Still maintaining steps as we have. I said, sometimes it's really nice to have steps for choirs, steps for wedding parties, steps so that the short people like me can be in front and taller people behind. But as well, places of contemplation, a labyrinth that would be flat stones in the grass, places and benches to pause, perhaps a raised platform for a music venue so that as one listens to the Carillon, I always pronounce it wrong, sitting with my family at a picnic, places to sit. The neighborhood can see it. The neighborhood is invited. And it really creates a place of music and spirituality, a place for inviting entrances, a place where we might sit outside and have a platform for an outdoor venue, an outdoor amphitheater for music and plays and children's programming and adult programming, or a place to pause. Keeping the community garden that's there, so community functions, active functions, looking into what's happening inside as well. And from the Portland Avenue side, again, using the Porte Cochere, that's the thing we drive under, as the main entrance, perhaps opening up the top of it with a little more glass and light to illuminate that as well, but to have a direct sidewalk, one of those little raised ones that goes up about 4 inches. It's kind of a speed bump on Portland, slows people down, manages traffic, but it also clearly identifies where we cross. Extending that into our parking lot so that as you walk in, you can have a main axis, a main sidewalk that takes us right into our facility from the north, knowing there are still other entrances, but the main entrance. And also helps in the parking lot to have daily parking for staff and those that are come during the day, but perhaps the middle area next to the park says this is a community area, perhaps during the week. Basketball hoops, a farmer's market, a place to park while you go in and play on the playgrounds and things. Again, to reach out to the neighborhood. We'll see some of these in 3 dimensions in just a second. This is like an aerial photo or an aerial sketch if I'm from the southeast. This is Summit Avenue. This is Portland. I'm kind of hovering above the other parking lot across Summit, and this shows diagrammatically some of the things that we've heard and have incorporated into the plan. So, again, the entrance right off of the gallery space, coming from Summit Avenue, slope sidewalks that lead in so that we've eliminated steps, even into the Center for Community Outreach, and a place that helps direct the entrance to a single entrance. Yes, we can still enter in and out of the sanctuary, but a clear path that guides us through the building from Portland to Summit. The idea on the Summit Avenue side, places to sit places of greenery that you can sit under trees, a labyrinth for both walking actively and walking in a spiritual mode. We've seen many of it with the Developing for the Future Committee. Places that we've been, like Bath and St. Martin in the Fields, and some of our history from our days of England, and as well as other places around the Twin Cities, Westminster, and even some of our neighboring church communities. There are things that we have been encouraged to look at to say, how can we interpret that for us here? The amphitheater from the east. This is a ground level view. Again, it's computerized, and for those on the Developing for the Future, I added some green to that tree so that it's a standard joke. We have a great committee. It's like, is that a tornado? What is that? So maybe green helps it look like a tree. It's in our computer program. We don't go there. The community garden is right here. It's still here. But again, sidewalks that come to a main entrance. Most of the doors that we have are wonderful old doors in character of the building, but they're wood and they're solid, and you don't know what's on. They're not very transparent. And the idea of transparency, we heard time and time again, this is who we are. This is our culture. This is what's important. Let's having some of our building elements reflect that. And what this drawing shows at the main entrance, and at all of the main entrances, let's place glass in those wood doors. Let's maybe even taking the wood doors off and making them all, as we've shown here, we take out the tympanum up above, so it's a lot of glass. It acts to invite you in. It lets light shine out. It helps as a beacon to the entrance, and it helps people see as they come up, there's activity on the other side. It's not that, I tell you, you come to a solid wood door, it takes a lot of confidence to open up that door because you don't know what's on the other side. That's not who you are. Who you are an inviting congregation. Again, let's let our building start expressing that as well. What you also see here, and we'll see more of it, is the gallery space right out here where we had coffee. The idea is to make that a 2-story volume, a real gallery like we've seen in other churches, that brings light in, that creates a central connection from north to south, a guiding path of which entering into the sanctuary, entering into the courtyard, entering into the commons or the parlor are all off of that. This is just a hint of it, but from the outside, from Summit Avenue, it goes, that's a glowing, it kind of glows at night, and it's encouraging, and it's inviting, and it's come on in. As the disciple Andrew said to Peter, come and see. Come and see. From the Portland side, the nice thing about computer drawings is you can pick what time of the year it is. So we get to pick days where there's not a whole lot of shadows coming, but again, the north side, a similar glowing, glassy entrance, places to sit as we drive under the Port Cashir on the north, the sidewalk that leads us out to the parking lot. And I forgot to say on the previous one, what we've highlighted on these drawings are some of the big changes. We're not suggesting we're going to paint your church white. But it kind of gets the idea of the size and some interventions that reinforce what we've heard and what might help guide us into the future. So we talked about the gallery space, and this is an architectural section. It's as if we cut a section vertically right through those stained glass windows in the arch. I'm sorry? They're going to stay right there where they are. And the question was, what are we doing with the stained glass? This is the orange right here. The idea is that the lower roof that's below the stained glass, that's right here, we add about 14 feet to it, and we bring it up right underneath the roof line of the sanctuary as it comes down. And we bring 2 stories worth of glass adjacent to the courtyard, and it lets natural light come in, illuminate the stained glass windows, but underneath the stained glass windows, we place doorways that go out into this new space. So if we turn around, and we'll show you a photo of this in just a second. One walks underneath, imagine doorways and glass underneath the stained glass windows so that you walk under the stained glass windows into a gallery space. So that as we enter from Summit, as we enter from Portland, you can walk through the gallery space and then enter the sanctuary from the east. We'll still keep the entrance from the narthex for the procession that's important. But what it does is as you enter in, you can now see the sanctuary. You can see it through glass doors. You can see the heart and soul of House of Hope while you can still walk past and go through. More to come on this. This is a floor plan of the level that we're on now. I have my wife and my family members constantly say, you've been in architecture for 35 years. Not all of us know how to read floor plans the way that you do. We're in the sanctuary right now. This is we call it the ground level, the main level plan. We're in the sanctuary right now. The doors that I just mentioned would be like here, here, and here. The entrance that we talked about, gotta go back. The entrance that we talked about there in the gallery space comes through here. Again, by removing the restrooms and moving them over here and over to here, we create a way that you enter and you can walk all the way out through to Portland. An information center right beyond this transept. The parlor transformed into the commons with glass and doors that open up into this common space that overlooks the courtyard that we enter into the sanctuary. And I'm going to walk through these basic spots after I give a general overview. But the idea of the commons, a place of gathering, a place of warmth. We have to keep the fireplace. Where one can get food and coffee and gathering, where one can come in and be oriented to every single part of the building. We can come in and we've moved the administrative offices to the lower level of the education wing, otherwise known as the Center for Community Engagement. Childcare, the nursery is right on this floor. I can see it from when I enter. A visitor can come in with their children and see the nursery where they go and know that it's close enough that they can see and drop them off and come to service. We also can enter and go in to the assembly space, the ramp that comes in and enters the assembly space from the east. But in the sanctuary, this is a beautiful space. The idea of uplighting the structure up above to celebrate it. The idea of making the chancel, this area up here, the chancel, accessible by a ramp that comes up, extending the chancel out underneath the crossing, likely in a temporary kind of way, that we could bring the communion table out closer to us. Long discussion of changing it to adding flexibility by having chairs instead of pews that help people get in and out. Some chairs have arms on them to help get up. Some chairs won't. They get tied together. It offers the flexibility of saying sometimes we might take some chairs out for a large musical event or a performance of dance or children's programming and things like that. Yes?
Can I ask about the children's nooks?
Yeah.
I'm the children's librarian, and you've taken that away with elevator. Where will that go?
The children's nook is right here.
Yes.
Correct. The elevator that's currently there, we're moving to a new elevator within the east wing that goes all levels. It goes up to the second floor, it comes to this level. It actually has a transition between the entering off the Portland Avenue. There's like 4 steps there, so it has a front and back to it. It also goes to the lower level right by the kitchen. And so one of the things that we heard was, from our central space, can we see the library? Can we go to the chapel? Can we see the children's nook? Can we see the children's library? That's where the library would be, is in the children's nook, so it's more accessible. And as we said, all of these things, as we move forward, need further discussion. Does it have doors on it? How is it organized and things like that? That's from 5% as we get up to 7 and 10 and 15 and 20% along the way. But what we heard was, let's make it accessible, let's make it so everybody can see it, let's let our visitors see it as we go through. A couple of things, thanks for bringing it up, is 2 new elevators. On the west side, an elevator, it's actually where the winding stair goes, gets us from the lower level to this level to the upper level, fully accessible. The west wing and the east wing, the Center for Community Engagement, all levels. Even talked about an elevator back in that corner to get us up to the choir loft. Other spaces on the main floor, administrative offices that are off of the commons, come in waiting offices, pastoral offices, restrooms, a couple of multi-purpose meeting spaces. Many of the thoughts in the master planning are adding flexibility. Some of these rooms don't have names because they will be named later as functions that are associated with them, but also, how can spaces be used frequently or more frequently? We know that people will be coming in for many outreach events that we have, and to have meeting rooms be also a potential classroom or rehearsal room, also potential as a practice room, or a commons area also as perhaps a meeting space. A chapel also as a place of contemplation. An entry area also as an art gallery. A courtyard, in addition to as a reverent place of ashes and cremains, also a place that might be activated, being able to walk out and to enjoy the nice courtyard space with other activities as well. If we go down one level, I like to call it the lower level. I know basements always have a pre-connotation in my own mind. But activating these spaces as well. The idea of the Great Hall having glass, removing some of the soils from the east to let east light come in to illuminate with natural light the Great Hall, but also to let the Great Hall expand into an outdoor meeting space, an outdoor amphitheater. Bringing natural light, having a catering or commercial kitchen that can serve the Great Hall and other areas. Restrooms nearby. The youth room moving from over here over to here, because it's closer, would have natural light, closer to the playground, closer to the amphitheater, closer to the Great Hall, again with an elevator that brings us right down, so that from the kitchen one can take hospitality throughout the building. Keeping the stage, making it accessible. As we move through to the west portion, we're currently I think this is kind of right now, while under the renovation, it's the everything room. But this would be one of the 3 levels of areas associated with the arts and music. Have a practice rehearsal room, have a dedicated bell rehearsal room and bell storage, robing room, storage, a code-compliant exit. If you've ever been down there, that stair is real narrow, and you come up to a door that's even narrower. And these are some of the things as you go through a master planning. We make it safe. We make it accessible. We bring light in, and as currently going on is new ventilation and new heating. Jump a floor and go up to the second level, the upper level. Practice rooms, music library, music offices. In the assembly hall, the thought of, currently there's a balcony that goes all the way around. Removing 2 wings of the balcony, having one balcony so that we actually have a little bit more direction facing west, and making it a 2-story volume. You'll see in a sketch in a little bit. We heard many times, there's many churches, Westminster including, have a large volume assembly space, a music space. It could be for lectures, it could be for recitals, it could be for performance. Bringing light in from the north, light in from the west, and another venue like we have in the sanctuary that could be shared, it could be rented, it could be utilized. It's very, very flexible. And the rationale for that, just a little bit, is it's actually an ADA accessibility of the balcony is very, very difficult because there are a bunch of steps. But the idea of keeping it where we have offices and technology for sound systems for a recital. In the East Wing, again, the Center for Community Engagement, the idea these would be flexible meeting spaces, about, I think it was 8,500 square feet over here. The idea that keeping the hallway, but we could change the sizes of the classrooms if needed. Maybe they're office space, maybe some of them are rental, maybe not. Just provides flexible meeting spaces for yourself, for the community, to bring others in, to exchange ideas. These are some conceptual sketches of some of the spaces that I've described with words. Imagine, again, right out here in the gallery, this is what it could look like transforming by removing the ceiling that's right here and lifting it up to tucking it under, just under where the slope of the roof comes. The stained glass windows that were mentioned earlier are right here. So that within the space, you see the stained glass windows. As you enter, Summit Avenue is directly behind me in this photo. The restrooms have been relocated, steps that come up into doors underneath each of the stained glass windows. There's a ramp to get you up to that level here. Every dignified entry, everyone can come in and can enter into the sanctuary from the same part. We also have a ramp at the end that gets us up into the narthex. So again, if one choir processing down the central aisle, a wedding that wants to have a central aisle can still happen. Can still actually go through the glass doors and out into the plaza as well. But the idea of a high volume space, areas for artwork, areas for banners, and it picks up on the structure of the building. So it's reinterpreting some of this Gothic architecture in a 2023 manner. Just like Gothic reinterpreted Romanesque architecture and said, let's bring in more light. Let's have places to mingle, places to meet. One could imagine having some high-top chairs and coffee and places to sit and places. One could imagine sitting here and reading and contemplating. One could also imagine it being very active because the sanctuary is filled with 550 people that have just had a great worship service or a choir event or a recital. This high volume leads you back into the common space, leads us back toward the Portland Avenue, leads us back to the community space, Kirk Parlor, which is kind of opened up as a commons avenue. Inside, where we are now, we talked about transformations in the sanctuary, uplighting, illuminating the great structure, having some flexibility up in the chancel area where I am. This floor, wonderful in it is, from when it was built, is not real level. It's kind of wiggly. And it concerns me from an accessibility point of view, from a walker, from a cane, from just walking around, from trying to even sit a podium. And without ruining the beauty and the reverence of the space, if this were all a level surface, even under where the current pews are, if the pews were removed and flexible, reverent-looking chairs were replaced, it adds flexibility to the space. And this also shows the aisle between the column and the outside wall. The pews are removed there to add some mobility, to walk around, because it's under those stained glass windows that we see are doors that lead out to the gallery space. So from within the sanctuary, we can actually see into the cloister. We can see into the courtyard. Others walking by can see what's happening in the sanctuary, the transparency of who we are. We're showing it to our neighbors. These, as Scott said, these aren't the final chairs we're going to pick. But the idea being they might be flexible. And with other congregations, we've done a mix of chairs and pews, all discussions that we need to have. Increased acoustics in here so we can hear each other. But the idea of this being a central focus, because it is who we are, within the framework of what we already have. Let's just extend it forward. This is the Commons, the Kirk Parlor. The idea being it's a place where we can all come and gather, but we've removed some of the walls and replaced them with glass and glass doors. These aren't the final doors. I'm not sure if it's going to be walnut. But the idea of certain things help gather people together. A fireplace, a cup of coffee, some food, our friends. Different types of furniture. Some might be places you can sit and look into the courtyard. Some might be tables where you can sit and have a meeting. Some might be high-top chairs that you have, or tables. We all tend to gravitate to places where we thrive. Options for furniture, we'll be discussing those as well as time goes on. We have a common joke in our office. There'll be a time for keister testing, and it's not right now, but it will come. But the idea being, you can see into the information center, you can see into those going around the gallery. From the courtyard, the idea of transparency and seeing the outside of the existing church with a 2-story volume that brings natural light in during the day and glows like a beacon at night. The courtyard is a very reverent space, and more things to be had on it. And this, if openings are made larger, we know there are names that are in the stone that will be reverently moved to a different location or incorporated into what we have. This is just a diagram of showing what happens if we add a little bit of more glass looking into the gallery space that connects the sanctuary through the gallery space into the courtyard, that is a place of contemplation, but could be a place of meeting and assembling and listening to yourself, listening to the Spirit talking to us, listening to music, an overflow from the common space out into here, an overflow from the connector between the sanctuary and the east wing. Again, a thought, and our question is, this isn't the final design, but what do you think? The idea of the information and gathering space, sort of right out here where there was a room, I think known as the bride's room, that has been relocated, and said the most people come in from Summit or they come in from Portland and they come to a place where they're met, they're greeted. Could be, I can imagine, big display things that say, what's happening this week at House of Hope? But from this area, I can see into the new commons. I can see actually the courtyard. I can see the restrooms over here. I can see the nursery. I can walk into the chapel. I can walk down the hall and into the sanctuary. Or behind me, I can walk and go into the recital assembly hall. Noted, please, in progress drawing. It was important that we thought, well, what happens in the assembly hall if one removes the balcony from the west side and the north side, still keeping it on the east, and start looking at creating a space, a recital space that has more natural light, that has more volume, that uplifts your eyes and the spirit like we have in this space. More to come on this, but it becomes another place, another venue that's smaller than the sanctuary, but bigger than some of the library and the other spaces for meetings, for gatherings. That's dramatic, that takes advantage of natural light, that connects inside to outside. We've heard with others, well, what if we do this? What if we make this a little more glass like we just showed on the previous one? Good idea. Let's explore it. Again, in progress. The Great Hall. We're down at the lower level here. Currently, this is just a wall, and it's filled with dirt. And this suggests, what if we excavate, remove the dirt, create an amphitheater on the outside and glass on the inside with doors to walk out to the amphitheater. So now the Great Hall extends from the outside to the inside, and the amphitheater from the outside extends to the inside. Think of the possibilities of performances that happen here or out here, and food as a reception, as a dining possibilities. The kitchen's right behind us, the elevator's behind me to my left, and a grand stair that comes from the main level that leads me down. Again, options for furniture can happen, but the idea of well-lit, both with new lighting but also natural lighting. And the idea of the kitchen, the catering kitchen or a commercial kitchen, but the idea of expanding it and having flexibility for many, many types of food being prepared, whether it's by an outside group or inside with youth pizza dinners or pancake dinners or things like that. Again, serving out into the Great Hall or preparing and taking in the elevator into other places as well. Again, a reminder of where we are. It's an exciting time, but we've just launched onto this path that we have. We're 5% of the way. it's a guide. There's many, many ways to implement this. The possibilities and the flexibilities are endless as we move forward. And your input is helpful. Questions? Right here.
You're from probably a southern state where the days are the same way.
I grew up in Madison, Wisconsin. Okay.
8 months of darkness from about 8 in the morning, and then it gets dark again about 5 in the afternoon. So that your evening things aren't going to get this daylight that you think you're going to see coming in, plus the fact that you're putting so much glass in. You know, we do get cold weather here. And I'm concerned about whether we're going to be able to, with glass, if you're going to be able to preserve. And it's a wonderful idea, but have you considered those things?
Yeah, it's a very good, we live in Minnesota, and it's, November through April happen. Glass has, for one thing, glass is, since this church is built, glass has come a long way from triple painting and things like that. It's very concerned. We have my office and others, we're very concerned, and we heard from you, let's be good with natural resources, and what do we do? It's heart and soul from what we. But we also heard we want to be more transparent with our neighbors and exposing what we have. Glass has a great spiritual component to it, from the light of the world to uplifting my eyes to the heavens. And during the day, light coming in to illuminate natural light. But in the evening, we have artificial light that will illuminate our roof here, but also illuminate in that space to make it bright. And then that extends out as a lantern to the neighborhood. So it has pros and cons for it too. You also talked about, it does get cold in here, and part of in Minnesota, and kind of here today, I guess. The HVAC system that is going will improve that, but also many times when you use natural light, it warms the floor. It kind of creates that. It's called a tromwall. Dissipating it, and light, natural light, has a warming effect to us as well. So some of the many things of what gather people together throughout, and fireplaces and bonfires and natural light are. So I think I feel comfortable with the direction that we're going, but I appreciate the comments that you had.
I was just concerned about the amount of darkness that we have a good portion of the year.
Yeah.
More light sunlight in the summer.
Yep.
Which is nice.
And
That's just in the summer, that's when everybody goes to the campus.
And we also know, we've heard, the solar array project that's coming. So let's harvest some of that sunlight that can also illuminate the LED lighting, and there's all sorts of controls for lighting and motion sensors and things like that are really things that are good stewards and go toward LEED Gold and preserving the environment. I'll go back. The question,
Classrooms are up on the second floor.
Yep. So there'll be classrooms. I mean, the community multi-purpose rooms are classrooms of some kind, but wrong way. Classrooms are up on the second floor. Other questions?
Does the music department want to move to the west side?
The question was, does the music department, I'm going to go to this level, want to move to the west side? We've had good discussions with them, and the discussions haven't been completed. They're open to it, and part of the master planning that we've heard and we've shared with others is the idea of creating a center of music and arts, utilizing the assembly hall, utilizing some of the major open spaces, and also enabling the east side to become more open for community engagement activities, whether it's outside agencies coming in or sharing office space. But we also have had discussions of the proximity, this is with the music department, of the west wing to the central space. It's ongoing, and we'll continue to have those. As we start out, no final decisions have been made, but many of these things make some sense from a flexibility point of view, and I think the direction that it's going has a lot of value. The question was, are we going to remove the pews on both sides? This shows it that way. The idea, and with losing seating with chairs, seats about 550. And as I've said before, sometimes it's by opening up to the east, removing the pews on the side where you are, that's really a requirement. Whether we do it on the west side for more discussion, but we also talked about having aisles in the center and on the side that are wide enough for choir and others to come through. So it's a greater discussion still needed. As we've said in others, sometimes it's a mix of pews and chairs. The flexibility, I think, is an advantage in the future so that you can add or take away. More thoughts on that still needed, but good question. Yeah.
At one point, didn't you talk about solar energy and having solar panels?
Yeah, the question, I mentioned solar panel. That's an ongoing discussion that is going on, not necessarily, we want to integrate that into here, but we're not leading it.
Yeah, I'll speak to that just briefly. The flat roof that connects the two wings is the logical place to put solar panels. And as a part of the HVAC program, the wiring for a future solar array up there is going in. The short-term challenge is that we have a wet portion of that flat roof that needs to be replaced. And it also needs to be determined that the flat roof can bear the weight of the solar array. So those are questions that we're still looking at, and solutions are in process. But that will further bring down our the new HVAC system brings our carbon footprint down by about 80%, and then the solar array will bring it down even further. Right.
Are you talking about the panels themselves?
Yeah.
I haven't seen it, but typically they are. They're
Right.
very rarely flat. You want to tip them to the angle of the sun, and that way snow falls off it as well. And we'd also heard, I'm going to move to we had also talked about, speaking of snow, snow coming off the sanctuary roof, coming to a relatively flat roof. Yes, we put snow guards on here. Yes, we've done plenty of flat roofs, and there are flat roofs, but we would capture the snow, bring it down through rainwater leaders into the storm sewer system or the stormwater. We'd even talked about, do we capture it as a cistern for irrigation for the site? Again, further developments as we go through. I just like these
Yeah.
photos.
There's a question over here.
Yeah. I'm sorry? Oh, how are we going to pay for it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a valid, it's an important question. And what we are going through, we are developing cost estimates on these elements. And again, high-level cost estimates. It's as we go, we're trying to look at ways that it can be done in phases, priorities as we go, and in every case, while we can still maintain our operations. But it will require a capital campaign to help implement these as we go through. And it might be some work done now, some work done 10 years from now, or things like that, in phases. Timing and amount still to be determined, but it's important that will come out. We're trying to refine that to help us along as well. Yes?
It's more of a comment, I guess. I just wanted to say how much I appreciate all the planning work. I know it's many, many hours from many of my fellow congregants and from you. I really appreciate it. And I really like that openness and connectedness between the two entrances and just bringing all the different spaces together. I think it's really exciting. I know it's kind of hard to picture it with the white. And then
Oh, golly, it's
and-
not
but
as,
that's fine.
come up and look at the laptop.
Yeah,
It,
but I wonder is that metal? Is that like are the big arches made out of metal?
I
And
think
I know it's
that
all
the
hypothetical.
question being, what is the material here?
Yeah.
We've looked at some options. One might be, is it metal? Is it wood? Is it a different colored stone to kind of do something a little like? But again, before keeping in contrast with something that's a little, I call it heavy, that suggests structure, connects to the existing structure, but it's a little more contemporary than just doing it out of limestone. And before anything gets solved, we're going to have lots of samples and do mock-ups and do it. So your thought of what would you prefer?
I don't know. I think it's kind of exciting. I mean, I like the kind of distressed metal look, but there's a lot to think about. I appreciate.
Well,
all
thank you. And I tell you, these ideas came from here.
Any other questions? We're losing our group to lunch. Oh, this is the lack thereof of the heat. Yes.
Several components I really like, but the one that really struck me as something I was concerned about is the amphitheater in the snow in the winter. How are you going to manage the drainage? Oh, how do you
I'll
manage?
answer the. Yeah, the amphitheater. Maybe let me go to the site plan.
How much it will be used? What's the cost benefit?
Yeah, the thought was this is an amphitheater currently that is excavated, is dug in, and similar to daylight, snow happens in Minnesota, and will this fill up with snow and will it be used at? Yes, snow will go in there. The idea is it could be shoveled. These aren't required exits out of the Great Hall from a safety point of view. The exits are still here and still here. And I think it offers the flexibility and the options. And part of these we show them is, what do you think? Would there be a lot of use for an element like that as an outreach to the community, as used within our own community, to and kind of turn it? We've heard, yes, that works. When it gets done and if it gets done is more to be determined in the future.
Yeah, I would just say that that area was actually excavated this past spring, early summer, because equipment for the HVAC system had to go
Somewhere?
on that wall in the, I guess it would be the southeast corner.
Yeah.
Right.
Down there.
And so it was really interesting to see what that looked like with because it was excavated all the way down to the bottom of where the cement wall is now for the basement, and then they filled it back up. Right.
And again, in that, by excavating it
Yeah.
down, you expose the concrete foundation. You put a new material on it that's compatible with the existing limestone, and it's a thought. Many things we said. What can we do to move beyond the walls of what we have, to tell the neighbors and show the neighbors the things that we currently are doing and that we want to participate with them and enjoy with them.
Right.
Other questions? thought of, when all it's done, who's going to be at the welcoming desk and who's
Yeah.
going to be this and who's going to. Part of the thing is, and Scott can, we have staff in a lot of different places, and we're trying to bring them on the main level when people come in. So they come in and they have a staff member that's there that's already here. Their just location is in a different spot, and the offices are over here. And we do many of the things that we're doing actually reduce the maintenance when you have less steps to shovel, and you're just shoveling a sidewalk that's all one level. It's a little easier. I can say that from my own house. But part of it is having the extending the risk of reaching out into the neighborhood. That is a huge risk that one takes, but it's, as our message today had, it's what Christ asked us to do. And some of that, how we pay for it, is relying on the Spirit and the goodness of what's in here, and those that are coming 1 generation and 2 generations and 3 generations from us in the future, because the people that built this knew you were coming, and I was coming anyway. Anything else? I really want to thank you for the opportunity to kind of give back a little bit what we've heard from you, and encourage you to keep looking at it and asking those questions, those hard questions as well. Last word, Scott?